Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another chess vlog. I wasn't planning on doing another one of these right away. However, there were 3 games from the tail end of June that I was just dying to show you guys, because in these 3 games that I have for you today, I get the glorious, coveted double exclamation marks from the bot, which apparently means I made a brilliant move. I don't know how brilliant they actually were. I'll let you be the judge, but if they were brilliant, then maybe I will do more chess vlogs to catch myself up to the present time, because these 3 games are from the tail end of June, as I mentioned, up to the 1st of July, so I'm a little bit behind on the chess vlogs. Anyways, to get into the first of the 3 games today, I'm playing white in this game, and I start with e4, as I always do. And the opponent opens with the Scandinavian defense. Yet again. Am I just cursed to have this opening in every one of my videos from now on? Well, according to the site, I have a 78% win rate with this opening, which is probably a good sign. Anyways, I capture, he recaptures, knight attacks queen, queen goes back to d8. Hey, it's almost like we're only just beginning the game. Except a pawn is missing from each side, and I have a knight developed, and it's my turn. So yeah, basically the start of the game. So we get some basic development moves here. And I pin the knight to the king, and then he defends the pin by moving the bishop to d7. The bot doesn't really like this move because it thinks that moving the knight to f6 would have been a more important move to play. And I kind of agree. The bishop is not really doing a whole lot in that position besides defending the pin. Speaking of which, I make the exchange straight away. Just trade the knight for the bishop, which the bot does not like, and I don't like it either because it results in the bishop being in a way better position. It's looking at this g-pawn with a watering mouth. Wouldn't it just be delicious to take that and you would get the rook immediately if I don't do anything about it? So, back when I played this game a couple months ago, I would have loved to make that exchange immediately, even if it would have resulted in the bishop being in a better position. Nowadays, I'm more wary of the position that results from an exchange like that. I still hate enemy knights, and I will still exchange them for my bishops, but not if it causes the enemy bishop to be in a really good position like this. So apparently I noticed the next move was going to be bishop takes g2, so I defend that by playing knight to f3, stopping the bishop from going to that square, and now the queen is defending the knight, so this is totally okay. Next move from him is a6, which is a little odd. I mean, it's fine, but if you were thinking of defending the b5 square, your bishop is already doing that at the moment. There's no immediate need to play a6. Anyways, I castle. He gets his other bishop out, and again, I make this exchange because back then I love making these exchanges and clearing up the board so that it's not cluttered with pieces, but this would have resulted in the queen being able to recapture the bishop and start being a threat to my pieces. Or at least it would have. However, the opponent recaptured with a pawn instead. Recapturing the queen is a little bit better because, you know, you get a strong piece out there and active. Anyways, my next move is to play queen to d3, which the bot does not like because it notices that I'm missing the opportunity to play d5, which doesn't look like a great move at first glance because doesn't this pawn just retake your, well, not even retake. Doesn't this pawn just take your pawn? Well, if you do that, then you can recapture with the knight. Your knight's in a really good position, and you can't take the knight with the bishop because that results in your queen being in a very excellent position. It's looking at this pawn, it's looking at this pawn as well. Like, if you get your knight onto g5, then that's actually a mate threat. So this is a very good position for the queen to be in, and you've still got your rooks. They can come out and start moving as well. You can give check on the e-file if you want. Really great position. So I think in that spot he would actually try and get the bishop to go elsewhere, maybe to like d7 or something. Either way, this is a nice move because it gets your opponent into a bad position no matter what they do, basically. So I had moved my queen forward instead to get it onto these diagonals. The opponent notices that play from earlier that I just talked about and stops me from doing it. I get my rook onto the d-file. His knight develops. And I move my pawn to h3 to stop him from going to g4. Not that I know if he's planning on doing that, but this is a good move either way, because the king now has a spot to run to if it gets attacked on the first rank, which is something that happens to me a lot. It's really annoying. So he castles. My knight moves forward to take this position. This is called an outpost. It's good to get your knight into positions like this, and you'll usually notice that there is sometimes going to be an outpost for your knight to take in most games. And now he tries to pin the queen to my rook, which is unfortunately not going to work for him, because what I do next is make this exchange with the knight, which the site thinks is a great move. I didn't think it was that great. It's just an exchange. So he recaptures with a pawn, and I can now take the pawn with the queen, so this is actually a beneficial exchange for me. However, you might have noticed that the rook can now take the a2 pawn for free, because there's nothing defending it now. It's not stopped from doing that, and I suppose I could have played a3 in order to stop that from happening. In fact, the site thinks that it's the best move right now. But hey, who can pass up a free pawn, right? Always take the free pawn. So that's what I did. And he moves this pawn forward. I have no idea why he's doing that. He wants to stop this pawn from getting captured, so he moves it into a position where it will be defended by the queen. But yeah, the site is saying that taking with a rook here is the better move, because it's sort of a free pawn. It's going to... The site's going to complain about it a lot, because I didn't think it was a good idea. But this is an okay move, all things considered. I'm attacking the queen, and if he decides to take the pawn, then I can take the queen here. So he has to reply to this somehow. He replies by counter-attacking my queen, which is actually a really bad play. I mean, one of the things you can do when your piece is attacked is to counter-attack a similar piece on your opponent's side. However, this is not a good play, because here's the first quote-unquote brilliant move. I capture the rook with a queen. Yes, I know that this position is under attack by the pawn, so of course he immediately takes back with the pawn. That's what he's going to do. However, by taking the rook like that, I have essentially given him a choice. Either he can move his queen and lose that pawn, or he can take my queen, he'll lose his queen, and also be able to take the knight, and then it's my turn. So he chooses to take the queen, which the site thinks is the best move anyways. And I take his queen, because why wouldn't you? He recaptures the knight, and now we're basically into the end game, and it's 2 rooks against 1 rook and a knight, and my position is probably better than his either way. Like, regardless of the material. Because this pawn over on this side is completely isolated, and he has a decent pawn chain here, but he's down 2 pawns compared to me. Or is he down 2 pawns? No, he's down 1 pawn. Pardon me. But with the pawn on that side completely isolated, you know, might as well be a lost pawn. So now, the site thinks that moving the rook to b3 would have been a better move than simply playing pawn to b3. Which I'll agree with that, actually. Because that would force him to... Well, it wouldn't force him to take the rook. Let's see what that would have resulted in. Let's see, in this spot, if I'm him... Then he has to like get the rook off of this file, because otherwise he's going to lose that rook. Anyway, moving on with the game. It's basically a bunch of endgame moves, attacking the knight, pieces attacking each other, retreating each other, things like that. And I think the turning point for this match was when one of us played... Let's see what happened. I attacked the knight on the back rank here. I always get ranks and files confused. What I'm hoping to do is get both rooks on the same file, because that's very powerful. So here, I could... Oh no, the knight is actually defending the c8 square, so I can't give check yet. Let's see here. Oh, something funny happened in this game too. So what happened was... Let's see. Move my pawn here. He moves that pawn there. I capture. He recaptures. And then the funniest thing happens. Have you ever seen the pawns get into a situation like this? This is weird. So after all of those exchanges, I found a fork here. I forked the knight and this pawn. This pawn can't get out of the way because it's pinned to the king. Basically, no matter what he does, yeah, I can give check there and take the pawn for free. And because the rook didn't move to c8, like if it had moved to c8, that would have been more interesting. Let's see, if it goes here, I can still give check, and after he moves out of the way, he only has this square to move to, as a matter of fact, at this point. Let me just get back to where the actual game was. So, where were we? We were right here. So after that, I'm allowed to take the knight. And then we get some maybe questionable moves because I basically threw away a pawn there. But what I'm hoping to do is I move the rook to f6, and he resigns after that. He resigns because I think there's absolutely no way he can stop one of my pawns from promoting at this point. So I'm not sure what he would do. Either the rook gets into a spot where it can get captured, or maybe it just has to throw itself away in order to stop me from promoting. But then I still have good material compared to him. So that was the first of the 3 games. And the brilliant move was way back when I took that rook with a queen. Where was it? Trying to find it in the game log here. Here it is. So do you think that's a brilliant move? Let me know. In the meantime, let's move on to game number 2. So here's game 2 out of the 3 I have that each contain a quote-unquote brilliant move for me. The site is unfortunately not going to show where this game's brilliant move was for some reason. However, I remember this game very well, so I will tell you where the brilliant move was, and you can trust me to not say that a bad move is actually a brilliant move just to save face. So, I'm black in this game, let's get underway. e4, e5, knight attacks pawn, knight defends pawn, bishop attacks knight, bishop develops. Pawn to d3, opening the way for the bishop. The bot is suggesting that he castle immediately, which is not a bad move either. Neither of these are bad moves. My knight develops, and then he immediately takes my knight, sacrificing his bishop. A move that I would have played, but, to be honest, when I recapture with this pawn, it does open the way for the queen and the bishop, so I have gained something in the exchange as well. So if he hates enemy knights that bad, this is probably okay for him. I think it's okay for me too. Although, according to the bot, black is just a little bit behind now, but whatever. Next, he decides to capture this pawn immediately. This is a huge mistake. Do not take that pawn immediately in this situation. It looks like a free pawn, and we say to always take the free pawn, yada yada yada. However, there is a brilliant move. I did not make this move, so this is not the brilliant move, but there is a brilliant move that you can make in this spot. Can you see where it is? 3, 2, 1, queen to d4. Threatening checkmate by taking the f-pawn immediately. There will be no place for the king to run, and the king cannot capture the queen because it's defended by your bishop. If he does not do something to defend this position, he loses immediately. If he tries to get the knight out of the way, he will lose immediately, and if he defends with something like queen to e2, for example, then you've got yourself what is basically a free knight. You're down a pawn, but you're up a knight, so the material is in black's favor at this point. In fact, the whole game is going to be in black's favor, because this bishop can't move either, because then you would lose the rook because of where the queen is right now. So I did not find that move, unfortunately. I decided to castle immediately, which probably caused the bot to blow a fuse. Question mark, question mark. Black is now completely lost. You can tell what kind of chess channels I watch, right? But no, black is not completely lost because white plays this instead of castling in order to defend from the same threat that I just mentioned. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of question marks here. Question mark, question mark. Black is now completely lost. Never mind. Sorry. We're both bad players, it seems, according to the site's bot. Alright, so that at least kind of defends the threat from earlier. I'm still not noticing it. I could totally attack the knight with the bishop and have this nice double attack on the b-pawn and the knight as well. I can't take the b-pawn immediately because it's defended by the bishop, but that does sort of lock the bishop into that position. It can't move without losing the rook and pawn. You can imagine what I'm talking about, I hope. That's a weird spot for the queen to go to. It's not really doing anything in that position. I guess it's going for a discovered attack on my queen later with that knight. Or the queen could be defending the knight, I suppose. I get my rook over to the e-file. Bishop goes all the way down here. Okay, I see what he's doing. He's thinking that I can't capture with a pawn because it's pinned to the king. Is that what's going on? So how did I respond to this? I'm not sure what I did. Bot says the best response is to attack the queen by putting your knight on h5. Maybe that's what I did? Ah, that's what I did. Perfect. So not only is the knight attacking the queen right away, but it's also defending the g-pawn. Now, it can't be taken without losing a piece as well. So let's see what happened next. Queen goes to g5, attacking the knight. And, yeah. I decided to fork the queen and the knight. But this is going to result in an equal exchange because the queen is going to take the knight, right? Right. So after that exchange, another weird move. The knight goes to d2. I guess the threat from before that I was talking about is still something that could happen if I move my queen to d4. I decide to... here's what the problem is. Now that the rook is holding down this file because the pawn is gone from the f-file, that is a free pawn. The king cannot take my bishop. So where does the king go? To d1, which means the king has lost castling rights. How sad for him. And now I should be able to capture this bishop with a pawn, but I didn't notice. I was still wary of the king being exposed. So I instead decided to just defend this pawn from being captured instead. Bishop decides to go and attack the rook. So I get both of my rooks onto the same file, which is really good. Knight decides to stop any sort of shenanigans from me, say, moving the bishop out of the way and then allowing the two rooks to attack the king from the f-file. Because that would result in a very heavy loss of material if I were able to pull it off, so that's what he does. Next, I move this pawn forward to attack the queen. Queen goes to h6. This is alright so far. I get my bishop back onto the d-file in order to prepare some kind of attack with the rooks later on. And then he decides to attack my bishop with his pawn like this. So here's where the brilliant move is. Allegedly. I don't think it's that brilliant. But I guess I just don't know enough about the game to think that. So the brilliant move is to sack the bishop. And what this does is it allows the queen to take the pawn on d3 for free. So he's going to recapture my bishop. And then I'm going to take that pawn. And this is a really, really rough position for him because now the queen is just attacking the king immediately. I can do so much with this position. I can take that pawn on the c-file, which threatens the rook on a1, and then that'll also threaten the other rook because if I could skewer the other rook. So, what does he decide to do here? Well, he unfortunately makes a losing move, which is to block with the knight. This is a very bad mistake, unfortunately. There's a mate in 2 now, and I'm sure you can see it. So 3, 2, 1. The first mating move is to go here, like I mentioned I was planning on doing earlier. So he will capture with this, and then after this move, it's game over. So what he needed to do instead was, I think blocking with the bishop makes better sense. Because I can't, because the thing is, this square is defended by the knight, so I can't take the, well, I can't take the bishop anyways because the king is there. But I can't, like, capture the knight. Well, I could actually. Let's see what happens here. I mean, I could take the pawn on e4 for free, which is what the site is suggesting. But I wonder what happens if I try this. He'd probably have to move the king out of the way by going c2. Okay. Then I can do this. So yeah, either way, getting the queen to take the pawn on the d-file resulted in a very poor position for him. And I'm sure if he did not make that mistake from before, then the game could have continued on from there and we would have seen some more interesting plays. But hey, that's how it goes sometimes. But I'm certain I've explained this game well enough by this point. So, this bishop sacrifice was the brilliant move of this game. Let me know just how brilliant you think this move actually was. And we will move on to the third game. And now for the third and final game of this video. This game is going to be interesting to talk about, I think, because there are a number of potentially really great moves that both players miss, so you'll have a lot of material for making fun of me in the comments. I'm white in this game, and the opening is a bit similar to the previous game that I just talked about. We get the 4 knights opening, so-called because we get all of our knights out there. They really ought to call this the 4 horsemen game. I think they'll be playing this at the Apocalypse. Now, when the bishop comes to c5 like this, what I like to do is either play d3 or castle if possible, because there is an infamous attack that you can play here that will really annoy new players. How it works is, you get the knight down here on g4, and then the next move is going to be bishop to f2, taking that pawn, and you can't take the bishop with the king because it's defended by the knight. It's seriously annoying, and if you do this with the knight instead, then you have a fork on the queen and rook. So unless you know how to defend against that particular attack, it's called the fried liver attack apparently, but I see neither a fried liver nor an attack. Just a terrible opening play. I'm joking, of course. So I castle in response to that, just to make sure it doesn't happen. And after he moves his pawn to d6, I move my pawn up here to d5. I was expecting me to make that exchange with the bishop and knight, but okay. So I decided to do that instead. I'm looking to exchange knights on d5. He castles. I make the exchange I mentioned. This is actually a bit of an error because after he recaptures with his pawn, well, now my knight is under attack, so I should probably exchange that as well. I do so by taking his knight on f6 with check, so he has to recapture with the queen, and the queen is in a bit of a better position than before, but I think this should be okay for the time being. I open the path for my other bishop. He moves his bishop over to a6. He could have pinned my knight to my queen, but oh well. I decide to attack his queen, get it out of the way, see if I can get it into a bad position. And then I defend my bishop with my queen. No real need to do that. The knight was already there, but okay. I also wanted to maybe defend this f-pawn from future attacks. Sometimes I defend things that really don't need defending. So he decides to move that pawn forward, try and exchange to open up the position a little bit. I'm not going to take that pawn straight away, because if I did, it would fix the doubled pawn on the c-file. Doubled pawns are sometimes good, but not always. Instead, I decide to take this free pawn that he just let me have for free. He moves his queen back there to attack my knight. That is a horrible mistake, unfortunately, and he's going to punish me right away. But I will tell you what I should have done to defend the knight instead. The bishop should have gone to f4, not the queen. Because with the bishop in that spot, he can simply fork those 2 pieces with his pawn. Don't fall for this, ladies and gentlemen. So I decide to exchange 2 pawns, well, 1 pawn for the bishop. He recaptures with a rook, which means my queen is under attack. So I go to that position, still defending the knight while also attacking the rook. And my queen is not in danger right now. So yeah, black's in a pretty good spot right now. He attacks the knight with a bishop. I get the knight back into its old position, which I should have done before. And this bishop to c8 move is considered a blunder by the bot, because what he could have done was take this pawn here. And that means my knight is now under attack, so I basically have to take the bishop with the knight, then the queen recaptures. And this is not looking like a very good position for me, is it? I'm still down 1 piece, and all of my pieces are scattered and not really working together very well. So, that would be good for him. It was a very big opportunity that he missed, I think. Ah, yes, and there was also nothing defending that bishop, so it's a free bishop, and we're back to even. For now, anyways. I still think I'm in a slightly worse position, because the queen and rook are really working together to attack right now. This is a weird move by the rook. I wonder what he's trying to do. I certainly cannot fork these pieces. It looks like I can fork them, but the bishop is defending that fork. And that would just lose the game for me straight away if I did it, so it's a good thing I didn't. I instead decided to move this pawn forward to defend against future attacks. Ah, I see what he was trying to do. If I did not move this pawn like that, then the queen would deliver an instant checkmate unless I defended that space somehow. So, that was the move that I needed to make, and I made it. Queen goes over here, and the next move that he's looking to do is to, like, if my queen wasn't here, what he could do is take this pawn with a rook, because then this pawn is pinned to the king. So let's see what I responded with. Ah. Probably, yeah, that's not a good move. Because now he can do that rook captures pawn thing that I just mentioned, and now my queen is blocking this row. Oh, he does it with the bishop instead, okay. So what did I do here? I got my queen into position. You can see that I'm really getting, like, backed into a corner here. This king is very vulnerable. So the rook joins in on the attack. I decide to try attacking his rook with my knight. Bishop captures it. Pawn recaptures. Rook recaptures. That at least got one of his annoying pieces out of the way. So there's still potential here. I decide to kick the rook. Rook goes one space forward. Queen attacks rook. Queen defends rook. Rook takes the open file. Now he has to worry about getting checked on the back row there. Queen gives check, which is, you're not really accomplishing much. I can at least block with the queen. So he could exchange queens if he wanted to. Now the queen instead goes back to d6, which is a good position. He's looking to potentially capture this pawn on the g-file with a rook, because even if I recapture, then he could really mess with me then, because the position is not good for me right now. I'm backed into the corner, and I make a very bad mistake here, but fortunately he does not see the move that he can make to instantly checkmate me. Well, it's a mate in two, but I'll show it. So like I mentioned, capture here, I recapture, and then he just has to go here, and he wins. He did not see that, however. Moving the king here does not work either, because the queen move would still work. Queen to h2. So he does not figure it out. He instead decides to attack the queen with a rook. This is apparently very good for me because my win percentage just went way up according to the bot. So the bot thinks that I should just take that rook straight away because he can't... He would have to... he would actually have to recapture with the queen because that would be check. Let me show this, in fact. This would be check. He would have to either go here, which makes his king very vulnerable, or go back here, which would allow me to instantly checkmate him. And he can't take with the queen because then he would lose his queen and be in much the same situation as before. So that would have been really good had I actually found it. No, I took the pawn back there instead. What was I thinking? Was I thinking that I could just, like, give check and then take another pawn? Come on. Let's see. We were very low on time. We were spending a lot of time on these moves, so that probably contributed. And in fact, he can win here instead if he does the same move that I already talked about multiple times, because it's working again. So instead, he decides to trade rooks. So that's unfortunate. But he's still ahead. This is still a very good position for him. Queen decides to... So my queen goes back to attack the rook. Rook is going to go back to defend the king. Then my king goes here. I wanted to do this to get it into a more defensible position. Maybe get it back in here eventually, behind all of these pawns. So he decides to attack my queen with a pawn. I can't take the pawn because the queen is defending it. So I decide to do this instead. I'm offering a queen trade, and the game would have continued had he taken it, but unfortunately he makes a very bad error by taking this pawn. He thinks it's a good play because this pawn cannot take the queen because the rook is here. So, this is the brilliant move. Allegedly. I don't know how brilliant this actually is. What I do is sack the queen by taking the rook. Now, he has to take the queen with the king, of course. He's in check. So that means there's nothing he can do to stop me from taking his queen with my pawn. And now the position is very favorable to me because I have the same number of pawns, they're in much better positions, and I'm up by 1 rook, so he really can't do anything at this point. However, I have only 45 seconds left on my clock, so I need to play this very carefully, or I'll run out of time and lose that way. So he's going to try and capture that pawn, or maybe just try and stall out my time. So we have these exchanges. Take his pawn in the back, and this is where he ran out of time. Not sure how. I don't remember this too well, but he had like 2 minutes. But I guess he just sat there thinking of something that he could possibly do and ran out of ideas. So, it's fun to make a gambit like that at least once in your time playing chess. And that'll be it for this video. So, do you think all 3 of these brilliant moves were all that brilliant? Let me know in the comments, and let me know if I should continue with chess vlogs. This is only the 4th chess log I've done. I would hate to end it here because that would mean the number 4 has killed something yet again. See you later, everybody.